Good morning. We're going to do, this is the town landing in Ipswich. Beautiful reflections, a pretty overcast day. A lot of you ask that I show you the drawing, which is very little here. This is this needs very little drawing, but here it is. If you'd like to skip it, just go ahead to the painting, just a few minutes along. All right, I just want to show, the drawings basically in watercolor, we're just showing you where to place the big shapes. That's all it is. It's not about, it shouldn't be about detail and all that, It's just the placement. It's a guide to show you where the big shapes are. All right, I'm just indicating there's some small houses on the marsh in the background there, so just indicating where they are. No details, just small, just the indications of where they are. The edge of the water. All right, there's some big rocks down here. I want to get those in. Beautiful. Add some nice color to it, and just keep them different, don't make them all the same. And I'm adding a rock on the right side just for balance, just a small rock on the corner here. That'll give me some weight to balance out the weight of those rocks on the left. All right, there's the edge of the water, the marsh. Okay, all right, let's get into the painting. All right, we'll start with just a wash. This is cobalt blue with just a touch of raw sienna in it, which will gray it down. And then down on the horizon where it touches the trees, I'm adding some phthalo blue to brighten up that sky as it hits the horizon. All right, so I'm going to put a wash of ultramarine over the entire water first, and that'll get very light, as you know, because it's really part of the reflection. Okay, this is raw sienna with a touch of quincy in it. These are the trees in the background. I'm keeping them warm on the warm side, even though in the photo they're very brown. I wanted to add a little color to it, so keeping it a little warmer back there. That's the shape of the trees. Where it meets the marsh. I painted around the houses, obviously, you see that. Okay, so I'm going back with just a little bit of warm color, quinsienna, just to do the outline, the tops of the trees. And I'm letting it run right down onto the other trees. I added some cobalt blue to that color. I wanted to get it darker, just for the base of the trees and around the houses. Just keep it moving, it's really, let those colors mix. Look how beautiful that looks, those golden trees up there. A little orange effect. All right, this is the marsh. This is just cerulean yellow. I'm sorry, raw sienna, excuse me. This is raw sienna, a little quinsienna mixed. Keep it nice and bright. Little dark edge on that as it meets the water. All right, we're going to put those dark trees in now. This is ultramarine blue with quinsienna, and I added some rose to it. Okay, I want the color, I want it to be brighter, especially towards the top of those trees. You want to add, it's really heavy here, the color, the pigment is heavy, but it's nice and juicy, as you can see. You can see that rose coming through there. All right, so there's the big shape of the trees. Now I'm going to go in and just feather out the shape in the tops and the edges, and all right, just give it that tree look. And mostly just water. I'm not adding any much color. I'm using the color that's there. And I want the tops of the trees to be lighter, you know, as they're getting more reflection from the sky. They're getting a lot more light in the bottom of the trees, right? Obviously. So you want to keep the bottom very dark. Okay? And the key about these trees, you don't want them to be the same. You know, you want to change the shape and size of them, and you don't want to get a little variety up there. That really helps, even though they're the same kind of trees. You know. All right, this one I'll make a little wider. It's hard to see in the video, but the tops of the trees are have much more rows to them. All right, just work that edge, work those edges so they give you a nice variety. All right, down below, I'm bringing that dark. What I'm doing is basically setting up the grass. You know, the marsh grass is growing up in front of those trees. So I'm just bringing down little pieces of dark, which will, you know, give you the impression that it's that the grass is there, and it will run down too as we do that. All right. Use the side of your brush to create those. All right, I'm going to go in this. Add some more. It's all wet still. These trees on the left are all still very damp and wet, so I'm adding a little more color to the tops of them. And I'm going to give it a spray when I get down here and let that color run down. I just want a little variety in there. All right, so I want to finish that. So I give it a spray, it loosens that up. Right, let's get these rocks in very dark on the bottom. That's quinsiena with ultramarine. So the bottom is always, you know, it's always wet, so it's very dark. These rocks get really dark at the bottom, but try to hold on to the warmth of it, okay? So there's the quinsiena I'm adding above the dark. And then what I want to do is add some cobalt blue to the top, you know. All rocks are cool and warm. Remember that, depending on the essence of the rock, the color will be different. But right, I'm taking a credit card here, and I'm just, you know, these trees on top, they're still damp. They're not wet, but they're damp, and you can now take a credit card and scratch out a few trees up there in front of them. Don't do it while it's too wet, because it'll just run over and cover your trees again. So you got to wait for it till it's not dry, but it's moist, so it's still damp up there. All right, I'm doing another layer of, this is raw sienna with some blue in it, a little darker just beyond the tree, so I'm making sort of another layer, and that will dry, as you can see. All right, we're going to put start these reflections now. All right, there's a nice wavy reflection here on the left. Just some movement in the water, you know, that's really all it is. But it's going to pick up some reflections, so I'm going to add some raw sienna to it. All right, there's little reflections along the back. All right, when you're doing these now, you want to go in with a fairly dry brush and just, you know, brush across it so you get some nice sort of sparkle on the water. You can see it's very dry. That's the placement of the paint. You can place it first very dry and keep a lot of that sparkle in there, and then go in with a damp brush and more color, and, you know, tie it together. But if you go in with a nice dry brush, and it will give you that sparkle look that you're trying to keep here. Okay. So that's it. You just keep moving along. Look at your photo. You can see how light the water dried when I put that coat of ultramarine on there. It dried very light, so you want to be aware of that. We're going to have to add some color to that, but edges are really important. Place your shapes here, and then you can see I'm backing out of that shape to keep the edges nice and soft. Nice and soft, and when you're doing water, the edges are always soft. I'm just using a damp brush there. Okay, just look at the photo and work these shapes. You'll have some thin streaks. I want to get a reflection coming down in the middle of these dark shapes. So I just took a wet brush. It's really just water, and you can see it'll create a nice. It'll flow down and give you a nice sense of reflection. A little reflection under those rocks. And I'm just bringing a little color here. All right, this is phthalo blue, very light. The brush is fairly dry. So you can see I'm just creating those sparkles. Again, I'm just placing that shape. I just felt like it needed more color there. So, all right, now I'll go in and loosen that up. You can see where where I placed those water strips in the dark. It gives it a nice sense of reflection. And you can go in now with a dark brush and just sort of put some waves in there. All right. So I patted out some of that blue to get the reflective look of the light coming down. Just putting some cracks and crevices in the rocks, the big rocks. I'm going in with my credit card. I gave this a little spray so it's damp. Going in and just bringing out some trees. Okay. Just scraping out more trees in the background there. All right, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it. Please subscribe and give it a like if you like the video. I really appreciate it. Thank you, and I will see you again very soon.